Welcome to another edition of the Get Made podcast. I got a great guest coming on today, and here we talk everything manhood. And today I got a guest. We're going to have a deep discussion about a topic I think that we rarely talk about in our community, and I think it's hampering us from actually thriving, if you will. Right. So, we're gonna jump right into this because I don't want to be. I need all this time for this brother right here. Right. So, introducing my brother Naim Naim. I say Naim Akbar. Man, I ain't heard that
SubhanAllah.
name in a while. I ain't heard that name in a thousand years.
Well,
Naim Baker.
you may actually hear it again today. So.
I know, right? Yeah. But I'm thinking. You see, I'm in that vein, right? So, Naim Baker, author, aspiring author, and brother, kind of introduce yourself and tell them about you, who you are.
Bismillah, walhamdulillah, assalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. My name's Naim Baker. As our host so graciously said, I'm an aspiring author. Actually, this will be my second book that comes out. Um, I'm in the DMV area. I guess I've been here for about 35 years, and in all that time, I've been very active, I guess, in the Muslim community from a development standpoint to a program standpoint. Working with a lot of youth, trying to. I basically have seen opportunities, wanted to see if I could fit into that space and participate in any way, shape, or form, and lent whatever knowledge or expertise or information that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me to help the process. And when it's been beneficial, alhamdulillah, and if my input has not been beneficial, I know how to stay in my lane and step aside. So I've been an activist, I guess, in that regard, for the past 30 some odd years. So I guess that's basically, I mean, from a basic standpoint, I guess the more we talk, some things will come out, and we can just add that to the list.
Right. So you add that to the bio at that point. Right?
Yeah, and you've actually had a very good friend and good brother of mine, Akil, on here. Yeah, he says every time we talk, he learns something new about me. So he's just kind of, and I've known Akil for, it seems like, forever, right? And he's like, I didn't know that about you, man. Something else. He keeps adding stuff to his profile. So
yeah, I think maybe one day, man, to be honest with you, have a panel and probably have you and Akil and a couple other brothers on here having a discussion, right?
It's going to be a very basic discussion, because if you're going to put me on with a heavy hitter like that, then I'm probably going to be.
Stop it.
I'm gonna be a fly on the wall, man.
Stop it.
I know my lane.
We know better. The email already said that he learned something interesting about you every time, right?
Well, that still doesn't make me a heavy hitter, subhanAllah.
Oh man,
not on that level.
I appreciate your modesty, brother. Your humility and your modesty. We appreciate that.
Alhamdulillah.
So here in the Get Made podcast, right, we jumping into the interview and jumping to the subject, but all new guests that come on, we go through the Get Made podcast questions, right?
Understood.
And there's 3 questions. And then on the third question, that really tips us over into the conversation itself, right? So the first question, if you're ready, the first question is, what Black author, preferably a male, book have you read that was inspiring for you?
That was inspiring. That's a great question. That's a great question. Um, well, because inspiration for me has come in different ways and for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would say the one that's kind of relevant to a lot of our situation today,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's the idea of family or community,
Mm-hmm.
is a book called The Peculiar Institution.
Okay.
You're familiar with that text, with that
No, I'm
book?
not actually,
Okay.
and that's the beautiful thing of having it because guests come on, they introduce me to new books, and I instantly go and buy it. You know what I
Okay.
mean?
All right. So The
And so,
Peculiar Institution, it's
hmm
a book written by a brother named Kenneth Stamp.
okay.
Kenneth Stamp. And it's basically a from what I can gather from it, it's like a research project that he did. And he really wanted to dive into the relationship uh, post slavery in
Okay.
the South. And he got his hands on a lot of narratives and records from different cities in the South. And
hmm
so he told the story of the institution he's talking about is the institution of slavery
Okay.
and its effects, not just on blacks. Because one statement he makes in the book is, slavery wasn't just an institution to control blacks; it was also an institution to control whites. And I thought that was an interesting perspective that he took.
Mm.
What he and where he got this from was, the 1% had to control the 99%, and the 99% didn't comprise of all blacks. It was mostly whites. And so there had to be a system put in place to control one and appease the other.
Mm-hmm.
So the institution actually sold the percentage of the 99% that was white. It
Mm-hmm.
sold them on the perception of a false sense of entitlement.
Mm.
By instituting systems that presented unfair treatment. For example, when the Europeans came over and worked as indentured servants,
Servitude. Mm-hmm.
right? Their servitude was either like for a short period of time, and then they were given land or whatever to help start themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Well, during the time that they worked, many of them worked right alongside the slaves, and they actually lived in the same conditions. And
Mm-hmm.
so, as you can imagine, what would happen when you socialize with people, you tend to intermingle. And so you had a lot of mixed marriages and mixed babies coming out of them.
Mm-hmm.
But you also had a larger community being developed. And this larger community started to demand more rights, and they started to rebel against the
Mm-hmm.
establishment. So
Okay.
they had to put laws and rules in place so that so that these rebellions would stop.
Okay.
So one of the things they said was interracial marriages are no longer legal. And they took the black children or the children from those marriages, and they sent them with the blacks. Now, they also developed, incorporated what they called the class system or the racial system, where
Okay.
you like Europeans were no longer designated as Frenchmen or Englishmen or Irishmen. They were classified as Caucasian. So they
Okay.
lumped them all in one group, and they called us, Negroes or Black,
Right.
right? Or whatever other derogatory name they could come up with.
Hmm.
The punishment for breaking this law was where the unfair treatment and where the false sense of entitlement really came into play. If after that law was enacted, people were, found guilty, then the black would receive 100 lashes and lifetime servitude, which would then also be transferred to their children.
Mm-hmm.
The whites would receive an extra year of servitude and 10 lashes. So now you have a penal system that's being developed that shows one crime but two different punishments.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
Mm-hmm.
um so it was things like this
I mean, because
that
that seemed like that would breed a sense of resentment,
from who?
between the both between these two people in this class.
Well, for that particular situation, yes, but that's
Yeah.
just one rule. That's just one law that was enacted. There were
Mhm.
many laws that were enacted to give them a sense of favoritism, you know, over blacks. The idea really was to incorporate in the minds of whites that they were different, they weren't the same, and that they were
Mhm.
better. And
Mhm. Okay.
so, um, but that system had to be put in place to stop. You know, if you're going to try to feed the mindset that one is lower than you, then you know one of the first things you're gonna do is stop them from socializing together because
Mhm.
when you socialize, you find out what people are really like.
Right.
You know, so that book was pretty influential.
Mashallah.
Yeah.
So next question is, what black male that you know personally has been influential in your life?
Well, there's been two primary ones.
Hmm.
Uh, no, one, well, they were both in my life, my entire life.
Okay.
Okay, so one is obviously my father.
Okay.
Um, you know, uh, I would have loved for him to have died. He died in 2015. I would have loved for
Oh,
him to
wow.
have died as a Muslim.
Nah, all right.
From a character standpoint, he was probably um, the best man that I have had in my life personally,
Hmm.
from a character standpoint. Um, yeah, he. I'll tell you what some people have said about him.
Okay.
All right, so I'll take it. I'll take it away from my bias and the fact that he was my father, and I'll tell you what
Mhm.
other people. So about 6 months after he died, uh, another good friend of mine, his mom died. Now his mom was considered like one of the neighborhood moms. Everybody loved this woman, and so um, I go up to support the family at
Mhm.
at the funeral, and so we're sitting around, me, him, and maybe 6, 7 other guys who grew up in the neighborhood. We're sitting around the table. So at some point, they all turn to me and they're like, "Hey, Bake, we heard about your father, man." And you know, so they give me their condolences, and then they said, "You know, your father was one of he." They said your father was one of the best men we knew.
Hmm.
And I said, "Why do you say that?" They said he was the only man that we knew who went home every night.
Hmm.
That was now I was over these guys' houses growing up many times. And every
Mhm.
time I was there, I saw their father. I saw their mother and father. So
Okay.
my naivete at that point was,
That's that's
kind
an
of
interesting
exposed.
thing. That's an interesting thing. We're gonna tap into that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I mean, come to find out that these guys, their pops was they were running the streets. They had other families, and of course, back then we didn't have cell phones and cameras on 24 hours a day.
Woo.
So it was really difficult to pop people
Hmm.
from running around.
Right.
Um, I did begin to think of why I was, I would be over one of their houses and their mom would wrap a plate up and say, "Hey, take this down the street to Miss Betty or Miss Johnson or whoever." And, I mean, at that point, it's like, oh man, Miss Betty must have been his father's side piece, so, so, but yeah, no, I thought I just had this notion everybody's family was mother and father because, back then neighborhoods were tight.
Right.
And so I just had this perception that everybody's situation was like my situation. I didn't think my situation was, I mean, I'm living in the same conditions they're living in. So it was just an eye opener for them to say that about my father. And then I started to reflect on character traits like I have a big family. I have 9 brothers and sisters.
Oh wow.
Okay.
Okay.
And my parents, they would argue a little, not a lot. Not a lot. My father was not, he wasn't that kind of guy. Um, but whenever they did argue or disagree, number one, I don't recall. I can't recall a time ever hearing him curse,
Okay.
and I definitely have never heard him call my mother out of her name.
Right.
And um, yeah, it was really really interesting.
And I guess you picked up those mannerisms for sure.
I would say the second one, yes.
Hmm.
The cursing, I was I was one of those like awkward cursors. Someone who, if I did use a cuss word, I kind of use it out of place, so it
Right.
it never really set well with me.
Yeah, you didn't get the art of, you didn't get the
I,
art of cussing
I didn't get
somebody
the
out.
art there exactly, exactly. Right. So
Mm,
I guess when I decided to to really be a Muslim,
mhm.
it was very easy for me to drop that. It because it wasn't like it added no value to whatever I was going to be, whatever I was
Right,
talking about.
right,
So
right.
it in fact, even today, if I hear, sadly enough, if I hear a Muslim using that kind of language, it makes me want to get up and just walk away. Because it doesn't add any value to anything that they're saying. Um,
Mhm.
I think they just use it, for a variety of reasons that they'll have to answer for
Right,
individually.
right.
But yeah, no, I know. I think that would be something I picked up from him. Definitely.
Okay, for
The
sure.
yeah, like I never thought about calling my wife out of her name. Never even thought about it.
Right,
I
right,
don't care how angry I may have gotten.
right.
Just never
Yeah,
happened.
that's something. I haven't been the most innocent guy in the world, right? I
Hmm.
do know that. But one of the things I never really picked up was calling somebody out their name,
Right.
right? Especially
Hmm.
a woman. You
Hmm.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's I don't even play light with it.
Right.
You know what I
Exactly.
mean?
Hmm.
Let alone doing it with anger. I don't even do it in play.
Exactly.
You know what I
Exactly.
mean? And
Yeah.
just describe
I
something.
don't even like it when they call each other out of names.
Exactly. Or call themselves something. You see what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yep.
That
Yeah.
is the weirdest thing, man. That I can,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, if it back in the day, somebody said that you'd be ready to fight them. Now you're
Yeah.
saying it about yourself. You know what I
Well,
mean?
I'll tell you. To me, um, I have three daughters of my own, but I'm going to say what I'm going to say, not because I have three daughters.
Right.
I'm really hard on women, and I'm hard
Hmm.
like with women, and in regards to how they value themselves.
Hmm.
So if a woman is going to devalue herself with those kind of labels to put on herself, then to me it tells me, you know, uh, where she is on the tree.
Mm.
Is she from the low hanging fruit, or is she from the good fruit up top?
Right. Right.
You know,
Hmm.
yeah, just never. I don't care how good she looks. When she starts to use that kind of language and associations about herself, those good looks just go right out the window.
Mm.
They go right out the window. Because
Right.
beauty's a dime a dozen.
Man, I tell people that all the time, man. I get this a dime a dozen,
Exactly.
and 24 for 15 cents. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
this thing can come real cheap if you know what you're doing, right? So,
Exactly.
you
Exactly.
know, what's the value now?
Yep.
You
Yeah.
know what I
Well,
mean?
so the other guy was I grew up next like two houses down from a Muslim family.
Okay.
So, I've had the presence of Islam in my life, I guess you could say my entire conscious life.
Hmm.
So there were a set of twins in the family. They were in my class from kindergarten, from kindergarten. So we were friends my whole life basically. And so their father had a very, very positive influence on my thinking, and
Hmm.
just as a young person, just um, I was told many times that I had an old spirit, you know. Um, but I think a few of my brothers shared that same thing. They were like that also. But
Okay.
this the father of this family, his wife died, and so
Mm.
he pretty much raised the kids for a long time by himself.
Mm-hmm.
So that told me a lot about him as a man,
Mm-hmm.
having and they had 10 kids in their family. So
Mm.
to be raising 10 Muslim kids by yourself for a period of time, that's a tip your hat moment to me,
Oh yeah, man, for
you
real.
know. And to
I
keep the
commend
boys in
anybody
line.
who can do it. I commend anybody who's doing
And
that.
no, exactly, exactly, exactly. Um, and to keep those boys in line,
Mm-hmm.
none of them fell off. It was really impressive, really impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in fact, very early on, they all made an impression on me, and I think I had to be around 9 or 10. They come back from a class because we
Mm-hmm.
lived in Elizabeth, New Jersey. That's where I grew up,
Okay.
and so they would go over to Brooklyn every week, every weekend for their classes.
Mm-hmm. What at Taqua?
That's a great question. I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
Not entirely sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but this one particular Sunday they came back and we're playing football in the street, and they would tell us about their classes when they came back.
Mm-hmm.
So this one particular week, the class was about why you shouldn't eat pork.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, my favorite meal was smothered pork chops, rice, and string
Wow.
beans.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're telling us this, and everything just seemed to make so much sense that
Mm-hmm.
my stomach just turned and my attitude toward pork changed.
Mm-hmm.
And I go in the house and I smell it on the stove, and I walked up to the stove and I could barely see over it. So I look over the stove, I look at each pot, and I point to the pork chops. I said, I don't eat pork anymore. And my mother and father was sitting in the kitchen and they busted out laughing.
Uh-huh.
And my father said, well, that's all that's going to be cooked. Now, I don't want to see you sneaking down here later. I said, no, I'll just have rice today.
Uh-huh.
So from that point on, it was easy. I mean, I just did it cold turkey, just like that.
Hmm.
And that wasn't a 9 or 10 year old kid. That was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala,
Right. For
you know.
sure.
Um, yeah. And so from that point on, I knew if Allah kept me alive long enough, I wanted to be Muslim, and it didn't happen until my mid 20s. Yeah, that's when I finally took Shahada, like 26 or something like that.
Okay. Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So those two men, I would say my father and my neighbor's father, who happened to be like a second father to me. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, and it does. And we're gonna tip into this last one, then we're gonna tip right into the podcast. It's well the interview
Discussion.
itself.
Yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
And so from your observation,
Hmm.
what do you see? How do you see the relationship between our older brothers and our younger brothers? And where is the gap taking place in that?
Well, if you asked me this question 2 years ago, I'd have a
Uh-huh.
different answer for you than I have now.
Okay.
Um, so I'll answer it from both perspectives. 2 years ago, I would have said, you know, from an Islamic standpoint, within the Islamic community,
Mm-hmm.
that is a direct reason why a lot of Muslim men are falling off, because there is a tremendous gap. There seems to be, yeah, sure, some fathers have relationships with their sons,
Right.
but it doesn't happen on a wide enough scale where it makes an impact from a communal standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
You see isolated incidences where kids turn out halfway decent.
Mm-hmm.
That was 2 years ago. And the reason I'm bringing that up as it relates to 2 years is our good friend Imam Hassan, Abu Yahya.
Mm-hmm. Abu Yahya. Mm-hmm.
Now, he 2 years ago, about a year and a half ago, he became the imam at the current masjid
Mm-hmm.
that we go to. And he brought a program with him.
Mm-hmm.
A program, and I'll give a little plug for it. It's called The Link.
The link.
The
Okay.
Link. Yeah. The idea behind The Link was to engage 18 to 30-year olds
Mm.
and get them linked not just within the community itself, but also linked with other 18 to 30-year-old groups in other area masajid.
Mhm.
So they've done, since the link has started, there have been at least at a minimum a half a dozen other masjids that have opened up and started doing some form of a link program for their 18 to 30-year-old demographic. And it was a very conscious effort to choose that age group.
Mm.
Um, personally, I think they could have gone back to 15
Mm.
to 30. Um, but 15-year-olds are not in the position that 21-year-olds are in. So from a marriage standpoint, a marriage
Mhm.
readiness standpoint, that 15-year-old still has a couple of steps, in my opinion, to go through. Um, but 18 to 30-year-olds, they're in
Mhm.
college or
Mhm.
or above,
Mhm.
and that social adjustment is significantly different than it is in high school,
Mhm.
which is why I think they chose the 18 to 30-year-old.
Right, because they should be out of high school at that point.
They should they should be at a
Mhm.
high school at that point.
Mhm.
Um, until a year and a half ago, nobody was addressing that demographic in the way they should have been, like to the degree that I see right now. So I think that's kind of forced young people to it's forced older men to become more engaged with that younger demographic because they're coming around the masjid more and they're asking questions more. And in my opinion, they're doing exactly what they should be doing by wanting to become more engaged in the administrative functions of the masjid. So, um, so I latched on. They invited me to come speak. Wow, I guess it was about a year ago now,
Mhm.
maybe a little more than a year ago. Um, they wanted me to come speak on um, character as relates to getting ready for marriage.
Okay.
And we were supposed to do a week, and we wound up doing 4 or 5 weeks or something like that.
Okay.
I mean, they just that topic you found out is that's their thing. Everybody's like they want to get married, so you know the talks we talked about. We entitled the talks "Filling Your Cup First."
Mhm.
I mean, you can't and shouldn't get married until you understand yourself and
Mhm.
and you have checked off as many boxes as you can as relates to becoming ready. So this was my 60-year-old self wanting to connect and do my part in building that bridge of communication and relation between our generation and that generation. So since then, a lot more, like I said, a lot more communities and a lot more older brothers are wanting to get involved in, you know, helping that demographic, become more not just marriage ready, but more community ready.
What is the impeding situation though that doesn't allow the hearing of the voices between these two groups of people?
Well, in my opinion, I think it's what this generation has is growing up with that we didn't grow up with.
Mhm.
And their connection to it and our disconnection to it. And I mean social media. Social media has caused a lot of people to not interact from a human standpoint.
Mhm.
And so, a lot of things are virtual. A lot of things are, done in sound bites. It's
They call
you
them
know,
shorts now. You know what I mean? So,
exactly, exactly.
uh,
So, but what it's done is it's actually stunted, mental or psychological development in young people where their attention span is only for the time period of that short.
mhm.
So and that's just something that someone who's used to working a job for 20 or 30 years, for example, they can't
Mhm.
relate to that give it up real quick mindset.
Mhm.
That jump here and there mindset, which is really interesting
Mm-hmm.
because I'm gonna say something about myself. I mean, I've been at my current job for like 25, almost 26 years, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So it's what I did was I had to stop. I had to stop when I thought about how come they don't have this the stick to itiveness that I think that this generation should have, and I had to
Mm-hmm.
go back and look at myself. One of the things I do, and here's another profile filler for you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for the last 15 years, I guess, I've been doing some small business development consulting. You
Mm-hmm.
have an idea, you don't know how to flush it out. I'm your man, right?
Right. Okay.
Now, where did that whole concept come from? Well, it came from this. In my life, I've had a lot of jobs.
Okay.
I've had a lot of jobs in a lot of different areas. So
Okay.
I have a little bit of knowledge about a lot of different things.
Mm.
All I did was parlay that into helping other people
Mm-hmm.
who may have an idea in something that I may have a little bit of experience in to help them flush out their idea.
Mm-hmm.
So I just kind of I parlayed that into a business is basically what I did.
Okay.
You know, but in thinking about that, I said, wait a minute, I had a lot of jobs. I
Mm-hmm.
jumped around a lot when I was young. So why am I surprised that these guys don't have the attention span? Because jumping around from job to job could be looked at as a lack of attention span.
Mm-hmm.
So I just had to kind of, wear my own history before judging this demographic right here.
Mm.
So it helped me kind of, lower myself and then connect with them on their level. And, I've come to them, with more of w- as they put it, a practical way of looking at things instead of so academic. So, I don't, I'm not a tolerable M, not a tolerable M,
Right.
you know. So what I've read, I can think about in practical terms, just put it in practical term, and they can relate to that.
Mm.
So, uh, this young group has, they have embraced me. They've invited me, back, you know, uh, for a number of sessions. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, I'm appreciative of that, and we'll see just how long this can go on, and just how much of an impact I can have. And when I no longer have an impact, I'll step back and let somebody else, take the baton and run. But as long as they
Okay, but
find me relevant, I'll keep
I'm, I'm glad you kind of said that, right? Because here's a question for you.
going.
When you say you step back, you're gonna pass the baton, right?
Hmm.
I guess I'm making a statement first before I ask the question. I had a brother on some months ago, probably earlier this year. And then I had him on again. I think a latter part of this year. Brother by the name of Dr. Hassan Akbar, right? Nice brother,
Okay.
man. Straight brother out of Queens, out of New York, right?
Okay.
Um, and he talked about situations with masjids and community situations where the baton wasn't being passed,
Hmm.
right? And
Hmm.
so, a lot of times what I told him there, what we talked about there was sometimes what happens, the older brothers and younger brothers are kind of competing for the same resources,
Hmm.
So even
Hmm.
though a brother might be 62, 65, he really need to pass it on. Well, he really caught with it because this has been his means of livelihood for whatever reason, for how long it's been, right?
It's
So,
funny you bring it up. I'm anxious here for your question.
so
I'm anxious
how
to hear it.
how do we pass the baton when we're still in the fight to kind of keep it going?
Okay. Um, this is a discussion that this is a topic that I've had many discussions with a few masajid about. To be
Mhm.
perfectly honest with you, um, we want to continue to run the masajid, us, these gray haired people. All right.
Mm-hmm.
We want to continue to run our Islamic centers because we don't want to give up the control of the money
Mm-hmm.
and power. That's it. I mean, if it also points to a lack of long-term planning. What do
Okay.
I mean? What I mean by that?
Mm-hmm.
You would think that a masjid would look at their respective jamaat and say, "We have 5-year-olds. What do we want this place to look like in 20 years?" And they would set a plan of action for it to look like that, like their
Mm-hmm.
vision 20
Mm-hmm.
years later.
Okay.
Um, in many cases, uh, many places do not have long-term plans.
Mm-hmm.
They're they're they're,
Many
they're
people
living,
don't have, for that fact, many people don't have long-term plans.
and that's part of the problem. That's
Mm-hmm.
part of the problem. We're very short-minded in our thinking, but we expect our kids to operate by the same set of rules in that regard that we wrote down 20 years ago. No, 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 no. These constitutions and bylaws are outdated.
Mm-hmm.
They do not fit the demographic of today's masjid. They don't,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know, and but we want to keep operating by them. And I mentioned this year and a half ago, this group, the Link, at least in this area, was developed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, prior to then, you had the schools for the little kids, three,
Mm-hmm.
4, 5, up to maybe 12. And you
Right.
had lectures and classes for the older adults, but you
Mm-hmm.
had nothing for that middle demographic.
Hmm.
When kids left that week in school and they aged out of it, it's almost as
Mm-hmm.
though parents said, "Go out and discover yourself.
Figure it out. Right. Go out and figure it out.
Go out and figure
Mm-hmm.
it out." But we never gave our kids the tools to really incorporate an Islamic identity in the social spaces we were putting them in. And as a result, you have a lot of kids that, you know, they shorten their names and they took on nicknames. They started to dress and talk like and act like and be like the people in their social spaces because
Mm-hmm.
they were not getting the tools to actually incorporate it and to live an Islamic identity in those social spaces. So a lot of kids don't even know who they are and what they're supposed to be Islamically, which kind of leads right into, I think where you want to go with the whole developing into men Islamically kind of path. If my father, if he's around, but he's working all the time, if I'm gonna look at this realistically, the average parent probably has about 8 hours of quality time a week, 8 to 9 hours of quality time a week.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the kids are in school and the parents are at work, by the time everybody gets in the house, you're talking about dinner,
Mm-hmm.
homework,
Mm-hmm.
getting ready for the next day, go to
Mm-hmm.
bed. There's only a very short window of time on a daily basis
Mm-hmm.
for a parent to really have an impact on that child's life. So we're looking at eight, and even if you talk about the weekend, you're still talking. You're not talking 24 hours on Saturday and 24 hours on Sunday. That parents are spending with their kids. Not
Mm-hmm.
every week.
Mm-hmm.
So if you average it out, I'll go on the high side. Let's say 10 to 15 hours a week,
Okay.
including weekends. That's not enough time when you consider they're in that social space from 7 and 8 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon, 5 in the afternoon,
Mm-hmm.
getting indoctrinated in that environment,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're going to come back and spend an hour with you. You
Right.
know, and most families don't dedicate that. They don't dedicate. Listen, we're doing one meal together every day. It's going to be
Mm-hmm.
dinner. We're eating dinner every day at this time. So you better be home. You better have your homework done. You know, there's no schedules. They don't have a schedule. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of times it's just, hey, go in the kitchen and get what you're gonna get. Or
Mm-hmm.
I cooked this on the stove, or today, forget it. DoorDash or whatever other eating apps we're gonna order food in.
Mm-hmm.
Kids eating in their rooms. Nobody's eating in a central area where we can decompress as a family. Where I can find out, hey, what's going on in your life today? Let's talk about what your day was.
Mm-hmm.
That's not happening a lot. So all of this is adding to that whole disconnect, that whole, you know, gap that you're referring to. So unless and so I'm basically saying this to sum it all up.
Mm-hmm.
This gap is created, number one, by the family, and number two, by the masjid. Neither one of them have done a great job of developing the kind of spaces where this demographic wants to be a part of. And that's a challenge. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why things like this young adults group, which is bringing that demographic to the masjid. They want to come to the masjid,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Whereas before, they probably felt like coming to the masjid was a chore. They got dragged to the masjid. You
Mm.
know, I have to go pray. And you saw traces of this during Ramadan, where the family would come for Tarawih, right?
Okay.
They
Mm-hmm.
come for the iftar. They come for Tarawih. The kids would pray Isha and then go sit in the back and get on their phones. And this happens everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
This happens everywhere. And parents are so focused on, I want to get this prayer in, that they're not even paying attention to the fact that
Mm-hmm.
in fact they don't they're like, look, as long as they're quiet, as long as they're not causing any trouble,
Mm-hmm.
let them play on their phone. Let them swipe. There's nothing I can do about it right now. Well, you're not really doing anything to create a space that they even want to be there. So that's why programs like that young adults group, I think, is a step in a direction. Like, maybe this demographic, maybe it's too late. Maybe it's too little too late for this demographic. But there's a younger group of 15, 16 year olds that is saying, hey, when can I join that group?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So as long as this kind of program stays intact,
Mm-hmm.
it'll give the generation younger than them, something to look forward to when they age in, because there'll be people who age out of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now, what can we do with this 20 to 30-year-old and get them more engaged and develop relationships? Well, here's another discussion from an administrative standpoint. I think personally that each masjid,
Mm-hmm.
if you have an administration, every administrative member needs to look at their position as an office. The office of the president, treasurer, dot dot dot,
Mm-hmm.
and they need to have a plan, a long-term plan that each of those positions have to contribute something to. If I'm the treasurer, for example,
Mm-hmm.
I have a right hand and a left hand. I'm going to grab one of those young people with my right hand and one with my left hand, and I'm going to say, I'm going to mentor you for this position. And everything that I have to do for the long-term goal, I'm going to get their input. I'm going to put it in the plan, and that's what I'm introducing to the board. And so
Okay.
when they see their input in action, it'll start to give them some buy-in that, hey, I have a value here at this master. And then you can, as you're mentoring, now you can say, hey, you know what? You guys, are ready. You guys are ready to take over, administratively in this building, and you start
Mm-hmm.
to incorporate them, you know, one by one, until that demographic from 30 to 45, 30 to 50, they're the ones who are running the communities, and you
Mm-hmm.
age out as the next group comes on.
Mm-hmm.
But the grays have to, we really have to recognize that the future isn't us, the future's them. And if we want them to be involved, we have to let them come up with where their vision for the community would be in 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
you know, because right now it's involving a lot of things that, quite frankly, we're out of touch with.
Mm-hmm.
Now we play the role of advisor at that point.
Right. You saying as it's something that's happening right now, we are the advisors.
I'm saying this is the role. This is how I think we should have it set up, where
Uh-huh.
we're advising them. We're the advisors.
Mm-hmm.
We're not running the show. You know, we're letting them run the show, but we're there as the voice in their ear. For guidance, for advice.
Yeah. And sometimes I look at things, man, and and that's what I was really kind of happy about, even with saying, the brother. We talk about him a little bit, but it's a good brother, Abu Yaya, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Because I know he's a younger man. He's
Yeah.
definitely younger than me,
Yeah.
right? But now he's leading a masjid,
Yeah.
right? He's the imam of a masjid.
Uh-huh.
So, but I remember when he was just sitting in the back translating stuff for us. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I
Uh-huh.
remember sitting there, man, and we would flock around him, and he's from the youth, and he was teaching some of us old heads,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh.
And so, and it was I like how his development has taken place, and then now he's into leadership.
No. No.
What happens though? But here's another thing though, and I don't know if this is really part of their cultural aspect, but he's not African American. You
I would
know,
argue that he is more African American. I would argue that he is African American because he's from
well,
Africa, but he was
well,
born here.
well,
But he was born
well,
here.
well, well, well. You say he was born here?
Yeah.
Okay, alhamdulillah. And
Yeah.
so the thing that I'm saying is, thank you. The thing that I'm saying is that I know that he has another cultural
Right.
representation,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
And so, therefore, in that, maybe in that they empowered him to and I don't think that's what we do. And I think that was more of the point that I was talking about than just him and his
You said they
affairs,
empowered him. You mean his cultural community
his culture, his community, and
empowered him how?
they allowed him to do things, to be a part of things, right? Which
Uh-huh.
then allowed him to cultivate the skill to be where he is too. You know what I mean?
I think
Because
that was a family thing. I think if you talk to him, that might be more of a family thing
well, I
because
mean,
his family was here, right?
but I think part of what I'm saying is that, and that's even, and I even tapped back into something you said when I asked you about, black men who were influential.
Hmm.
You said your father,
Yeah.
then you said the guy down the street.
Right.
And you saw this guy. I don't know if his wife passed
Yeah.
somewhere in
His
that,
wife.
right?
Yeah.
But for the most part, you seen him as a working, active father,
Correct.
right? And you
Yes.
saw your father as an active, working father.
Correct.
And then somewhere along the line, you became the same person, acting,
Right.
working father,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
And so the thing that I'm kind of looking at now is that a lot of us didn't get to see that.
Right.
So therefore we didn't. Let me say it this way. I'm gonna say it a little differently. It might be better. I had I don't know if you know. I know he's in your area. He was on our show one time. Our show, brother by the name of Anu Kemet,
Yes.
right?
Hmm.
And I know he lives in your area,
Yeah. I know
right?
him. I know him pretty well. Yeah.
Right. And so me and Anu have some great conversations, man. You
Okay.
know what I mean? And so we were talking once, and he was saying part of the problem that he was identifying something is that black women got to see their mothers be daughters to other women. That's something that's not a huge phenomenon
Okay.
for black men.
Correct.
You know what I mean? A lot of us haven't seen our fathers be sons.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And a lot of us haven't even seen our fathers,
Right.
let
Right.
alone our fathers be sons,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
And so therefore we didn't get the mentorship or the apprenticeship.
Hmm.
in that, right? And I think that idea spreads across in other places,
Okay.
right? Meaning we come to our communities, and I've seen, I've seen churches go through the same thing. Not only masjids, but churches, black churches go through the same thing.
Hmm.
Leadership don't want to get out the way,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
Because at that point, leadership they don't want to relinquish the power
Right.
and or the funds
Right.
that
Yeah.
come with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So I said
And
power and money before. Yeah.
exactly, you know
Mm.
what I mean? And so you know, how do we, from your expertise, and I'm gonna say your expertise because you're an author at this point, you finishing up a book, kind of dealing with the same stuff, right? And we want to tap into the book as well,
Hmm.
right? Um, how do we get out of our way in that? How do someone like you and I who identify this talk to somebody who on our at our level, if you want to call it that, meaning
Hmm.
age,
Hmm.
right? And have that conversation. Who are you developing up under you?
Well, I mean, I think you just said it. I mean, it's not a topic that's generally thought of as being worthy to talk about in a masjid, for example,
Mm-hmm.
but it definitely should be. And if not in the masjid, then then we need to probably create outside events like retreats where this is definitely a topic to talk about, because like it or not, it's what needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned that, these constitutions and bylaws in a particular masjid, right? They could be 30, 40 years old.
Mm-hmm.
People treat people treat these documents like they're revelations from Allah. Like the words can't be changed. It's not wahy, right? It's not a revelation. This is like words we put on paper to fit what we needed at that
At
time.
the time, right?
30 years later, look, ask
Right.
any member you happen to see, and I would lay dollars to donuts that 99% of the people haven't even read what's on the piece of paper.
Mm.
Don't even know what's in the bylaws. So
Mm-hmm.
so they don't even know, like, the people in charge don't know what they're supposed to be doing, and the people who they're in charge of don't know what to hold them accountable for.
Mm.
So why not change the words on the piece of paper? You're not even
Mm-hmm.
abiding by them anyway.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
And so what I'm hearing you say in that is that neither group is really educated on what to do.
correct.
And so then there becomes this apathy in the sense then that nobody really wants to do it because they feel like why. I mean, it's almost like they got beat down in a sense before you get started, you know,
Okay.
because they
So
don't. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no,
Go
no,
ahead.
you're right. You're right, but also, um, it takes it'll take a you or a me to actually tug on the thobe of the leadership, the imam at the
Mm-hmm.
masjid, to bring it up as a topic.
Mm-hmm.
To bring it up as a topic, if not mentioned and talked about as a topic during the khutbah, then
Mm-hmm.
at least, hey, if you got that Friday night or Saturday night or Wednesday night talk, that needs to
Mm-hmm.
be the topic.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and if you want to bite size it, guess what? Do present a piece of the idea after the salah every night. You know, people gonna come for Isha, present it right 5 minutes, 10 minutes after the salah.
Mm-hmm.
We have to take advantage of the avenues where we're going to get the biggest bang for our buck in this regard, and that's
Mm-hmm.
at Juma, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
or and or after Isha, because Isha seems to be the salat that most people go to.
Right. They commit to at the masjid.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
So, whether it's work or school, Isha seems to be the one. So really, that these should be the times when this very, very important topic needs to be, and it doesn't need just to be talked about one time, because it's not just a talk. So here's what I proposed.
Mm. Say that. Hold on. I'm gonna do a Shadeed Muhammad moment right now. Say that again.
I said, Subhanallah. Which part? Here's what I proposed.
No,
No, it doesn't need to. It's not just a talk.
exactly.
It's not just a talk. So here's what I'm proposing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy. Okay. So I'm gonna give you another profile bit.
Okay.
I'm going to propose that this young group, this young demographic, within the walls of the masjid, go through an administrative training program,
Mm-hmm.
administrative leadership,
Mm-hmm.
just going over the basics of, you know, organizational operations,
Mm-hmm.
so that they, and the ones who are interested can come,
Right.
brothers, sisters, whoever's interested can come,
Mm-hmm.
in the effort, and this will be like one of the steps for them to start assuming responsibilities, administrative responsibilities at the masjid.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think education is the way.
Right. Right.
A lot of
I firmly believe that. I
Yeah, a
firmly
lot of
believe
people
that.
don't have education in that field.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, I hesitated before saying what the proposal was, because um, I'm actually talking to myself in this regard.
Mm-hmm.
I've attempted to do this, by the way, before, and without naming the two or three masters that I presented it to,
Right.
I got shot unceremoniously shot down.
Mm.
Um, I wanted to actually conduct this type of workshop,
Mm-hmm.
over a period of weeks, tackling each phase of the administrative process
Mm-hmm.
over a series of weeks, and and um, and just gear it towards people between 18 and 40.
Okay. You jump right into my head. Okay, what age
uh,
group is it going to be? Okay.
18 to 40,
18 to 40. There you go. Mm-hmm.
giving them the basic fundamentals of masjid and or nonprofit organization administrative functions,
Mm-hmm.
and actually having them draw up a mock plan, a long-term plan, and how they would hold each position accountable
Mm-hmm.
for reaching certain milestones and goals within that plan.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that I had to do as a capstone, in a
Mm-hmm.
capstone course.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it'd be a fun exercise, but it'd also be highly educational.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, I think this is something that would be a good foundational step to get that demographic involved in the process of assuming that responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
but also continuing, like we mentioned earlier. You got to have these hard conversations
Mm-hmm.
with people who are gray. And I would even argue this: perhaps the community we need to take a pulse of the community, because perhaps we need to say something like this: how many people here would vote to put in the Constitution and bylaws that you can't be past a certain age to be on the board?
Mm-hmm.
Once you get to a certain age, you're not eligible anymore.
Mm-hmm. And you need to cycle out. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yep.
And identify someone who that kind of you can cultivate and groom or whatever to kind of take your spot.
I mean, yeah, definitely put that in.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, which is where the treating your position as an office comes in. Because
Mm-hmm.
when you bring on two people to be your interns, you're basically grooming them.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
I think that would be a way of getting us out and getting them in.
I think the other part in that, the other problem. Well, I'm gonna say problem. The other focus with that would be, or the issue that would be there, is not only do the people who are our gray brothers, they're having difficulties relinquishing, then our younger brothers having difficulties maintaining attention to kind of do it.
Well, that's because we haven't taken the time to even include them. Like
Okay.
a lot of it is assumptive on our part, you know,
Hmm.
where we see one or two people like that, so we're painting everybody with the same brush. When in
Hmm.
reality, if you sit down and talk to a lot of these young brothers, young people, they would be interested. They would be interested. You know, there are young leadership programs outside of the masjid that they're getting involved in. So that in and of itself shows that they are interested in the progression of something.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
we need to channel that inside the building.
Hmm.
What are you
That's
thinking about?
interesting. That's an interesting thought, Naeem. That is an interesting
I mean, it's
thought.
happening already. We have a lot of our young Muslims are involved in leadership programs outside of the masjid. And it's
Mhm.
almost like saying the masjid is not offering anything, so I'm gonna go out here and look for the opportunities out here.
Right. Right.
So
Eh,
we need to just offer it.
right. We need to offer it in house at this point versus
Absolutely,
doing it
absolutely.
somewhere else. But
Yeah.
then making sure that we have qualified people to be able to take care of that. You know what I mean? And what would
Hmm.
that look like? I mean, anything, everything has to be built,
Right,
right? You know what I
right.
mean? Nothing is just going to be. I mean, nothing is just going to be handed over like that. I don't think Jabril coming no time soon.
No, no,
Bringing
no.
revelation, right?
I'll add this to this. All right.
uh,
Earlier you mentioned something. I was trying to remember exactly how you worded it, but I
mhm,
think at this point in our lives, I know I've done this, and I would highly encourage everybody our age to do it. But everybody in general, but at least everybody our age in our age group, you're gonna need to take time to stop, just pause whatever you're doing, and turn around and look at. You're going to see two things, one of two things, maybe both. You're
mhm,
either going to see the seeds that you've planted to this point and what you can do to further nurture it, or you're going to turn around and you're going to see the carnage that you've created and how you can fix it. And if you don't do that, you could just continue to be walking down this path of destruction that you're the one who's responsible for. And not looking at your part in how the community is in the situation that it's in could be you walking down your own destructive path. And Allah knows best.
hmm,
But we don't do that reflective thinking enough because we think Allah woke me up today, so everything's cool.
mhm.
Nobody's complaining, so I must be doing okay. Maybe nobody's complaining because people are afraid of how you're going to respond, or
Right.
we've just become so complacent in our incompetence or in our a mediocrity that we've come to accept it as normal. This is just how things are. It's comfortable. Why rock the boat?
Mm.
While
Man,
we
you
look at
just
this, while we look at this young generation, go somewhere else.
mhm, mhm. And figuring
Because they're
out what this right here is the epitome of a particular thing when we could really be showing them how to do this in house.
right, absolutely,
You know.
absolutely.
Um
Which may require a re-education on our part first and foremost.
mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Maybe the reason why we don't want to give up power and control is because we've lost. You know, who was it? Napoleon Hill. You familiar with Napoleon Hill?
Mhm.
Okay, so he says this thing about having a mastermind.
Right. Because that's the thinking. Well, that's Think and Grow Rich, right? Is that what that? Is that what
Yes,
here?
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he says this thing about a mastermind of having this one person who has a vision, but they
Mm-hmm.
have this group of people who share the vision, and not just
Mm-hmm.
share the vision, but they're able to take the vision to heights that go beyond just this one group. But they're all committed. They're all committed, and that's what makes it a mastermind. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So we, the Grays, we have a very limited. I mean, look, we got more days behind us than in front of us. So how
Right.
far can our vision really be?
Right.
You know, and so a lot of us may be so fixed on preparing ourselves for being in that hole in the ground that we're missing the forest for the trees, which is,
Mm-hmm.
you know, passing the baton. Because just like as fathers or as parents, we want to make sure our kids put us in the ground, right, and
Mm-hmm.
make dua for us, and then teach their
Mm-hmm.
kids to make dua for us.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Why wouldn't you want that same thing as a leader of a community? To teach
Wow.
the people under you
Mm-hmm.
to take over your job and make dua for you,
Mm-hmm.
and then to teach those after them to make dua for you.
Hmm.
'You know what's going to happen? We're going to hold on to it. We're going to hold on to it. We're going to hold on to it. They're going to put us in the ground, and then they're going to have to start from scratch again because we didn't give anything away.
And I read a book once, man. It was a lot of books dealing with Malcolm X, right?
Hmm.
And what I gathered from a couple of his books is that was his problem.
Hmm.
He was so keen on holding everything close to vest when he started his own situation. When he
Hmm.
passed, it wasn't able to maintain because he didn't empower anybody.
Did he trust anybody?
He didn't know. He didn't.
Well, there you go.
But you can't be in this position of working with people and having trust issues.
Well, I mean, I agree with what you're saying, but I didn't wear those shoes. So the betrayal toward him, and you don't know where it's coming from, it's really hard to it's hard to open up and give trust.
Well, I mean, but here, we talking about him. Okay, he had some things that happened to him, but we got other people who walk around with the same mindset. I
Hmm.
don't know what happened to them in their life.
Right.
They're in our, and we're being stagnated, and we're either are or even losing traction
Hmm.
with our organizations or our communities, our masses and things of that nature there, because we're not empowering youth. And somebody talking about where they got trust issues.
Okay.
This is what I'm posing to you to hear what you say about that.
No. Well, I'll tell you what I try to do here at my house.
Okay.
Of course, every parent is going to be different in this regard. Some will just give their kids things to do and then yell at them when they do it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I try to look at it more like the older you get, I'm going to give you small pieces of rope, i.e., responsibilities,
Mm-hmm.
based on your age, your physical ability, what I see in you in terms of maturity. I'm going to give you different things to do.
Mm-hmm.
If you take that piece of rope and wrap it around your neck, then I'm going to assume that I need to pull it back because that in that phase you're not displaying maturity or responsibility. But if I give you that piece of rope and you tie a knot, a secure knot around something, then I'm going to give you another piece of rope or a longer piece of rope and a longer piece of rope, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're building trust.
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult for a parent to see past what they're doing if you're giving children responsibility and just assuming that they are going to know what to do all the time.
Mm.
So when they don't do it right, you just yell
Mhm.
and you never build trust. You got all these episodes of mistrust. It I don't know if I'm making sense in saying that.
Mhm. Mhm. I mean, you are
All right. So,
the idea, and we're putting this type of information out in space now for sure. I want to make sure that our audience,
mhm,
who made it this far and listening to this podcast, understand that this is not a monolithic solution, right?
it's not.
You're
No, no,
you're
no.
you're
It's not a one
presenting
size fit
you're
all.
presenting something, right? That you know that can possibly work, along maybe some other people present some things that can possibly work, right?
Absolutely.
We're
Absolutely.
looking for the things that can work so we can be better,
Right.
right?
All right. Now it's boy, that statement right there just uh it crosses so many lines in terms of relationships, not just
Mhm.
parent to child or leader to member. It's marriage. It's husband and wife. It's father and son. It's mother and daughter. It's all
Is
right. So
nephew or uncle, is auntie and niece, is
exactly, exactly.
it's grandparent and
Which is why
grandchildren.
it's not one size fit all. It's not like it's not monolithic as you alluded to.
Right.
Um,
But there's some
yeah.
fun, there's some pieces of it that actually you can take though, and this is why we try to introduce brothers and people who are at the Get Made podcast. So maybe they had some pieces earlier. That whole thing, the way they said it, probably didn't work for them, but some pieces of it would work for them, right?
Hmm.
But they need other pieces,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Now they say they got to this episode, they're checking this out, and they're hearing you. Okay, oh man, I can put this piece here and then replicate it in various different spaces,
Right. Right.
right?
Hmm.
Because we want them to be successful. And what is it? Because we need to. Okay, let me be clear to the audience, right? We need to merge this gap
Right.
because this is what's hurting us. This gap, men not being able, women probably can do it a tad more differently than men. I ain't gonna
Hmm.
necessarily say that they, all the way on top, you know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
But just because of nurturing aspects, they're able to kind of, you know, put certain situations to the side and work with somebody, right? Work with another
Right.
woman, in this instance, right?
Right. Hmm.
Um, because they may see the good for the greater good in a situation. We haven't really got to that understanding of about the greater good,
Correct.
and
Correct.
so therefore, then because you and I both once upon a time was 18,
Hmm.
25,
Hmm.
30, 35, 40, and so on, right?
Right.
I ain't telling my age up
I,
in this
I'm
thing.
about to say, I'm glad you didn't
you
keep going.
know
Those
what I
increments of
mean?
five could have gone up a long time, right?
You know what I mean? So, but I stopped at a certain point, right?
Uh-huh.
But you know, if we are then capable of, you know, God, man, this thing crosses so many lanes.
I know.
Uh, um, and trying to keep it sturdy, steady is, it's a challenge. I do see the challenge.
Well, you mentioned okay, so you're asking how can we bridge this gap? How can we build understanding and how can
Hmm.
how can we do what can we do in terms of our part to ensure that we're pulling at least one, if each one of us focuses just on one,
Hmm.
to pull them up to assume the responsibility, take the reins and take this vision and move it forward.
Hmm.
Um, I kind of allude to this um, in this compilation that's about to come out.
Hmm.
It's understanding the purpose of two things: understanding the purpose that Allah created us
Hmm.
as a species, as humanity. Of
Hmm.
course, He says. He says in Surah to that that he only created jinn and men to worship him.
Right.
That's men as in mankind. But
Mhm.
Allah created you and I as men,
Mhm.
and He created our mates as women, which are two different parts or two different elements or parts of that particular species, meaning
Mhm.
humanity. So in that creation of a man, we have a certain set of obligations, responsibilities, and duties that we need to learn, we need to understand, and we need to implement. And likewise, our women, they have, because they were created as women, Allah has a certain set of, these things for them as well.
Mhm.
I think until we get back to the basics of understanding and learning that individually, we won't be able to really have an effective, a positive effect on bridging that gap, making sure the development takes place, and then nurturing. You know, so I'm saying all that to say we probably need to. We don't probably. We definitely need to get back to understanding, like I said, learning, understanding, and implementing the whole process that it takes to go from boys to men.
Mm. And and you are introducing the title of your book at this point.
Correct.
Mhm.
Correct.
That's
Um, there are different stages from birth all the way up to old age. There are different phases and stages that we go through in terms of, physical and psychological development,
Mhm.
social development, that play a huge role in the decisions that we make when we're 60,
Mhm.
and it affects how we relate to the ones who are 20,
Mhm.
you know, um, all of that, you know, our decisions could realistically, be affected by something that happened to us, something unresolved that happened to us when we were a little kid.
Mhm.
You know, subhanallah.
Just listen to you talk, man. I'm telling you, sometimes I sit here, right, and I got like 50 things running through my head, right?
Uh-huh,
Just listen to you. And I'm like,
uh-huh.
man, and because you thinking about the next question in that, and how would you formulate that, and
Hmm,
how how you put this puzzle together. You
gotcha.
know what I mean?
Hmm.
And like I say, it becomes that, and it seems like the book, when you're saying you just really look at your book, that you're taking it from stage by stage, what these stages look like.
Yeah. Okay. So, if you will allow me, I mean, I can
Sure.
go through what each, not in detail, of course, but what I did was I took full disclosure, full disclosure. Man, about 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, doesn't seem like it. Okay, maybe 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I went to hear. I was relatively young in my Islam.
Mm-hmm.
I went to hear um, a brother speak at Howard.
Okay.
Um, I don't know if you're familiar with this imam. His name is Fahim Shoaib.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think out in the Midwest, right?
he's in California.
He's in California. Okay.
So he actually um, he gave me permission to transcribe a talk
Okay.
that he gave.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the name of the talk was Boys to Men.
Okay.
All right, and he did exactly what I did, and which is why I call it a compilation.
Okay.
All right. Here's another profile bit. So many years ago, I took a grant writing workshop,
Mm-hmm.
and in this workshop, uh, it was taught by another Muslim brother, but he taught it from a different perspective. He didn't teach it from how do you write it, or he didn't teach it from the ABCs of writing it. He taught it because he was a grant reviewer. He took
Mm-hmm.
the applications, reviewed them to see if they were going to get funding, and so he taught how to write a grant from the perspective of how the reviewer is going to look at it, right? If that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. So anyway, one of the things he said in this presentation, it stuck with me. He said, there are no new ideas. There are no new words. There are no new words. Everything that you hear, everything that you think, someone else has either said it, did it, or, I mean, there are no new words. That kind of stuck with me.
Okay.
So, in putting this compilation together, this talk, you talk about making an impact. This was one of those talks that made an impact.
Okay.
Now, I didn't meet him at the lecture. I didn't get to have a chance to meet him at the lecture. I bought the cassettes. Okay.
Okay.
And like I said, this was 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So for at least 20 years after that, I kept thinking, through my experiences and so forth, I'm like, you know what? I wish I had that talk because I thought I lost the cassettes. I wish I had that talk, man. I would really like to do a reboot of that particular talk.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm cleaning up one day and I happen to run across a box of cassettes. And I looked at this one. I said, "There's no way. There's no way that these are the cassettes." I found the cassettes. I said, "Wow."
Hmm.
So I happen to have a cassette player.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Well, I would turn the camera so you could see it, but I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
um, I had a cassette player, or I have a cassette player. So what I did was I just recorded it onto my computer, and I got the plugs to transfer it from cassette onto my computer, and I
Okay.
transcribed it. I transcribed it. Now, in transcribing it, I found that uh, there's some things that could have been said differently, a lot differently. Of course, some of the language um, wasn't relevant to today. Um, and I saw where he didn't use ayah and hadith like I would have used them.
Okay.
I didn't even know if he was still alive because this was after COVID that I found the cassette.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I didn't know if he was still alive, but we do have a mutual friend. So I called the mutual friend and I asked if he was still around, and he put us in touch with each other. And I told him what my idea was, and he said,
Mhm.
"Listen, if you don't do it, I'll be upset."
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
He said, if you don't transcribe it, if you don't do it, I'll be upset. So
Mm-hmm.
alhamdulillah, in transcribing it and going through the transcript,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I started like all of my experiences, whether things I went through, whether things I witnessed, you know, people
Okay.
who I've uh, uh, learned from, people I've advised, people who have advised me. All of these things started to come into my mind, and I said, let me just do a brain dump and put them on paper. And I just put them where I thought they would go in the framework. So the framework of BOYS, he used the framework BOYSMEN. I'm using the entire BOYSTOMEN.
Okay.
And what I'm doing is I just really took what he said and modernized it
Mm-hmm.
and threw my color into it, and then through experiences that I've had and things that have kind of helped shape some of my thinking over the last 30 years
Mm-hmm.
that I thought would be relevant to it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the finished product of it. But by no stretch of the imagination does it tackle every aspect. I really think that this is my perspective on this particular topic from boys to men. Because even though I'm using his framework, you know, this has Naim written pretty much all over it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I thank him for allowing me to actually use this
Mm-hmm.
as a framework because it says so much. It said something 30 years ago. which kind of points back to something that we mentioned. This problem, this disconnect, this if this brother talked about it 30 years ago, if he talked about elements of a lack of knowledge of the development in these processes, in these phases 30 years ago, and we're still having problems, it means that either people take this information like we do a lot of times,
Mm-hmm.
put it through our sifter, and
Mm-hmm.
1% of it stays. The
Mm-hmm.
other 99% winds up on the floor getting swept away or
Mm-hmm.
blown away. So
Mm-hmm.
when we hear things, it's like we never heard it before.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So basically, I take each letter, and so B is for birth, and O is for when they get a little older, and Y is for youth, that youth stage.
Mm-hmm.
S, you know, uh, S is a very interesting phase because it's a phase called syzygy. I don't know if you're not familiar with the term syzygy. Syzygy. Syzygy is actually it's an astrological term.
Mm-hmm.
It's a term that really means something like, alignment and balance of celestial bodies. Okay. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
using it metaphorically.
Okay.
I'm using it metaphorically to point to the alignment and balance of aspects or characteristics that are generally deemed masculine versus feminine, and how men should have a balance of those masculine qualities, or supplemented by those, or complemented by those feminine qualities, whereas females should have those female characteristics complemented by those masculine aspects. And if
Mm-hmm.
they're in alignment, then you have syzygy. But if they're out of alignment, then you have males who act like females or females who act like males,
Right.
because those traits become more dominant,
Right.
right? And it doesn't mean that they have to be gay, but they'll have what I call womanisms instead of mannerisms,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
So, but it could lead, if a young boy has been socially conditioned to wear dresses, to wear makeup, to play with dolls, things that are traditionally female in nature, or if he's been touched, which happens a lot, unfortunately, then those feminine aspects are going to accentuate
Mm-hmm.
themselves. So his syzygy will be off. So that's what the S is for. TO is transitioning through
Okay.
opportunities. That's when I mentioned giving rope, and if they tie the rope around their neck, or if they actually show that they're responsible, then you give them more rope through those opportunities. It's basically cutting the apron string.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that young boy has seen from his father or the males around him, you know, examples, and he's going out and socially to put them into practice to see how responsive they are, how responsive, he is, or the situations are in relation to that. M is about
Mm-hmm.
maturity, manhood, and this is where I really go through a whole manhood
Okay.
checklist, a manhood checklist. E is broken up into things like economy, empathy, um, ego, and how ego, in particular, if you have an overinflated ego, then you're going to have problems with women, most likely.
Hmm.
You know, um, if you have an over exaggerated ego,
Mm-hmm.
I think having an ego is very healthy. Having a positive self image of yourself is really healthy. But if it's
Mm-hmm.
overinflated, then you might likely have problems with women, because you'll think you look better than them. You'll be in the mirror more than them. So yeah,
Right.
you'll just
Yeah, a lot of penetration taking place out here, you know.
right.
Mm-hmm.
And the N is obviously for next generation.
Mm-hmm.
Next generation. What seeds, like I mentioned, what seeds have you planted for somebody else to benefit from its
Mm-hmm.
shade? But I also talk in that phase about sexual development in males, and three or four phases that we go through in sexual development, like autoeroticism, depending on how you're socialized. I call it HEA, or heterosexual emotional attachment. And then once you've identified a specific woman that you want to get with, then you actually are in a phase called cathexis, which is really just where you want to invest your male energy in that particular person. You want to procreate with her,
Hmm.
and then you're ready to commit.
Wow,
So you have those four phases.
it's amazing, man. We go back to talking about Imam Akil, right? So
Hmm.
he and I are having a conversation, about marriage and things of nature there,
Hmm.
right? And so it was like, dealing with a young man who wanted biological children, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But he's been married, he's raised children, but he didn't have any, right?
Hmm.
And so the idea was kind of, well, go out and get you one, right? But it's
Mm.
like that sounds easy,
Right.
but every woman don't need to be you don't need to procreate with,
True.
you know. And
True.
so in that, then you have to then make sure that your search what are the check box, because she might give you a kid, y'all not together, she's gonna give you some misery with that.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? She gonna
Yeah.
drag you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You stand a chance of getting drugged by her, right?
Absolutely.
Um, but nevertheless, as how do you then go about going through the checklist to make sure everything else, because you want the relationship, the
Hmm.
relationship has to sustain, because the relationship is going to then allow the child to be able to
Right.
see,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because the first chapter of the book is called The Journey,
Mm-hmm.
or Understanding the foundation of what actually builds a boy into a man.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which is really the foundation of a family.
Mm-hmm.
And I go into women and how the role that they play in the foundation of the family.
Mm-hmm.
And so you talk about checking boxes, and understanding why you were created to be that specific um, gender. You know, I think this society has done a tremendous job
Mm-hmm.
of, I'm gonna, the word I use in the book is "woe manipulated,"
Oh wow.
not manipulated, but "woe manipulated." All right, they have done a
Yeah.
tremendous job of, you know, having our sisters, women in general, but our sisters really uh, not pay attention as much to why Allah created them as a woman, but seeking survival through this equality or through feminism, and the effects that that's actually had on the family structure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there have been some articles that have been written by feminists who are older and who actually they got to a point in life where they wanted a family, but they turned around and they were so busy trying to establish themselves as the woman, or
Mm-hmm.
the her, that they later regretted, and they went through a sense of depression, you know because of the decisions that they made in their life. um no, is that everybody? No. But it was just interesting to hear, you know these women speak out. And then you hear things like, um, how this push for empowerment and equality was intentional. It was intentional from an economic standpoint, but also a side benefit was the destruction of the family.
Mm-hmm.
And and that's had a tremendous effect. Believe it or not, it's had a tremendous effect on the type of men that have come up, that have been raised.
Hmm.
Because that takes away from a lot of the nurturing that young kids need from home, that was really missing. They got it from somewhere else, somebody else, or somewhere else. Because yeah, because of this push that went on. And I'm not saying all this to say that women shouldn't work, women shouldn't go out. I'm not saying that at all. That has nothing. That is completely different,
Yeah, we
conversation.
having a different conversation, right? We're having a
Yeah,
different conversation with
right.
that. Mm,
But we're talking about like understanding where these foundational, tidbits that lead to decisions where we have a separation in generation. We have a generational gap. And what
mhm,
causes these generational gaps? Well, let's look at the seed. If we're talking about at an age turning around and look at the seeds you've planted, well, the seed started when that baby before that baby was born. The seed
mhm,
started with mate selection.
mhm, mhm,
You know, it started with self.
mhm,
Was I prepared? Was I as prepared Islamically? Was I prepared economically? And did I actually approach if okay, did I approach marriage like a job interview?
mm. Okay.
Because I'm supposed to come with a certain set of skills that I've been trained or raised to have. She's supposed to come with a certain set of skills or traits that she's been raised to have, right? So
Mhm,
so did I come with those skills?
mhm,
And I'm looking for a job.
mhm,
You think about any job that you've gone to try to get. Number one, you looked up the company, looked up what they did,
mhm,
you looked up how many benefits they had, what it was paying, and whether you had the skills to actually qualify for that job.
mhm,
But you also looked at the job and said, do they fit what I'm looking for?
mhm.
We don't treat each other like that. As a foundation,
Right,
as a starting point,
right.
which is why we don't marry. Of the four reasons the Prophet ﷺ said, we don't generally marry for the best one.
Mhm. Now, so I ain't gonna
But
say
that's
it.
where the seeds are laid.
Huh?
That's where the seeds are laid.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
I ain't saying a lot. So this is what we're gonna do, brother Naeem.
Because
I
we've
want
been
to bring,
rapping, right?
huh? Yeah,
We've
I
been
want to
rapping
bring you
for a while.
back. I
Yeah.
want to bring you back. If you
Okay,
don't mind
well,
coming back at another time, and we kind
anytime,
of
man.
dive into some conversations because even in that planting the seeds, and I'm gonna make sure I keep a mental
Hmm.
note of that. How these seeds are planted. I think we might need to have a conversation about that because I do
Yeah.
believe that if we are having a conversation as men, we're having a conversation. What is our responsibility in a lot of this, right? We talk about
Hmm.
bridging the gap and doing a lot of different things. If we just take out men as men, what our accountability look like, right?
Hmm.
What's our responsibility? What is our role in this situation?
Hmm.
And having an
Hmm.
understanding of the role, at least understanding the role. Now, how you
Right.
implement certain things in the role is going to be on you, right?
Right.
Um,
Right.
because we're not saying everything is just cookie cutter in this situation.
Right.
Everybody kind of have their
Hmm.
own thing, but we just saying identifying the role, right, is going to be incumbent
Right.
upon everybody to be successful. And I think we can have that conversation because I do believe we're not having that conversation either.
Absolutely. We're
You know what I
not.
mean?
We're
And
not.
so that's the why it's important having conversations. I mean, I can bring people up here to interview them and ask them what was happening in 20, 30 years ago, all this other type of stuff here. And kudos to those who are able to do that, right? And their platforms. This
Hmm.
platform here is to educate, though,
No. No.
because,
No.
this ain't sensationalism, right?
Right. Right.
You know, and
No.
so
No. Well, I mean, I don't know what I've done to add to that, but
well,
you know,
alhamdulillah, brother. With the thing in the book, you need to go ahead and finish the edits on this book so we can have it out here. You know what I mean? I'm with
no.
I'm with, I'm with Sheikh Fahim myself at this point. You know what I mean? You need to get this thing right, bro. You need to get this thing out
Yeah.
here.
No. No.
And
No.
so,
No.
you know, um, being in a situation where you are taking care of this type of business, doing this, yeah, you're adding to it. you add to the knowledge base of what it
Right.
needs to take place for
No,
us.
no,
You
no,
know what I
no,
mean? Because
absolutely.
I am specifically targeting a group of people.
I understood. Understood. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, as much as we share common issues,
Mm-hmm.
the the perspective or the lens that we look at them through is specific when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to how they're dealt with, um, the impact that they have. I mean, you can and we should deal with things specific
Mm-hmm.
before. I mean, it's kind of like taking care of home before you go outside and take care of something else.
Exactly.
You're not saying
Exactly.
that outside is not important. You're just saying that in order for
Home
me
is
to give
even better.
in order
Right.
for me to give my best effort, I need to make sure my home is tight. Right.
Right.
That kind of
Oh,
yeah.
oh, you believe water for yourself and your family, a fire that's fueling men and stone. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? You
Exactly.
got to start in before you go out. You know what I
Exactly.
mean?
Exactly.
So we're gonna close out for the day, right?
No.
Because we
No.
could be here another 2-3 hours, man. I ain't gonna
I
tell
know,
you.
man. I know. I
Yeah,
kind of felt like the conversation was just getting started.
yeah, I mean, it really was, to be honest with you. And so, you know, but I had to kind of close it. That's why I love having people come back, and we can kind of pick up a conversation. We open up some things. We can kind of start diving into these particular things, and or people who are listening to this podcast,
Hmm.
you can start having some conversations. You can think. Like
No.
KRS-One said back in the day, I I think deeply. You know what I mean? And so,
Right.
and maybe we might need to start kind of getting to that phase of thinking a little bit more about what's happening with us,
Right.
so we can make some changes
Right.
and bring it.
Absolutely.
And everybody bring their little tidbit. You don't have to be famous, known, an influencer, an imam, all this. You can bring something to the table that is just as powerful as anybody else, because that's something that Allah gave you
Absolutely. No.
to think about and to come up with. You know what I
No.
mean?
No.
So,
No.
so I think we got your email, how people can reach out for you. You do have a coaching and consulting, business. Why don't you tell them a little bit about that and give them your email where they can reach you?
Well, the coaching business is called Sakina Initiatives. It's also a new project that's getting off the ground. Um, I can be reached in regards to information with that, with the email that's scrolling across the screen right now, naimbaker@gmail.com. Um, and that is until I actually get off of my non-technical uh, non-technical behind it and find somebody or get with somebody who can actually help me come into this decade. um, yeah, but I'm looking forward to that, and it's basically uh, a marriage preparation, service, marriage preparation service. We're not in the counseling business. That's a whole nother lane that, to be perfectly honest, that's
Mhm,
outside of my field of knowledge and expertise.
mhm,
Um, I can coach you. I'm a coach. Uh, just really based on my over man almost 40 years of marriage and uh, life experiences and things of this nature.
mhm,
Um, as well as the good people who I've put myself around, or who I've been fortunate enough to be around. That's a
mhm,
better way to put it.
mm.
Yeah, that has actually given me a lot of or some insight that I eagerly share at it, any chance I get.
Mashallah.
So
So,
so I can be reached through my email.
okay. So, everyone, I really appreciate you, everyone, tuning in to this podcast today, this episode today. This has been a very interesting conversation. I hope you got something from it. You gleaned something from it. You can take it and handle it where you need to handle it. Um, and even come up with some questions and come up with answers for something else. Hopefully we can get this question going and get you going, right?
No.
So with that, y'all know how to reach me. Y'all know what it is. All platforms, the Hassan Clay Experience, um, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok at the Hassan Clay Experience, on Facebook, Hassan Clay, um, and we broadcast every Monday at 7 p.m. So please continue to share. Give us some comments, some feedback on what we can do a little differently, what we can do more of, what you'd like to see less of. That's all. Is all important here because we're here to service as well, right? And so we definitely look forward to seeing everybody, talking to everybody, listening and hearing everybody. And yeah, subscribe to my YouTube channel so we can build this YouTube channel up. And inshallah, see you guys next week. All
I
right.
wanted to add something. Hey, you're
Okay.
going to be in Baltimore. You're going to be in Baltimore
Thank
in
you,
a
thank
couple
you,
weeks.
thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
You're right. Thank you. I don't know what I'm slipping. My podcast producer will even go come and slap me in the back of the head when I get off of it. Talking about, why didn't you say that? Why didn't you talk about it? Yeah, in Baltimore, I'm gonna be at the Winter Conference. I'm presenting at the Winter Conference from the 26th through the 28th. Now I forget what I think you can go at Rhoda Islamic Center, Delaware. Their website. Just put that in. I think the
Mhm.
website will pop right up for you, and you can
Mhm.
see who all the lineup is going to be there. Register to be there. It's going to be at the hotel, so you can get your room there. I think they got rooms blocked off at a pretty decent rate. So yeah, by all means, we're going to be there. We're going to make this thing happen, and I'm actually looking forward to it too.
Yeah,
Inshallah, Sheikh, you be there. Hopefully you'll be
I
there.
plan on being there. I plan on being there,
And so
inshallah.
and so,
Yeah.
we're gonna kind of keep this thing happening. Y'all happen to show up, y'all come out, y'all show up, please holler at me, shake my hand, tell me what's up. You know what I mean? Y'all know I'm blind, I ain't gonna see you. You know what I mean? So you see me. So you know what I mean? So yeah, hit me out, hit me up, let me know what's up. And I look forward to hearing from you. But yeah, Baltimore, the 26th and 20 to the through the 28th of December, which is
Mm.
a couple of weeks from now,
Yeah, a
right?
couple weeks from now. Yeah.
And so we're looking forward
Everybody
to.
should be off.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because it's their holiday running around at that time too, right? So y'all should be off. Y'all should be able to come through. Hopefully, you come through and spend your time with us.
No,
And I'm sure you would definitely
no.
benefit from that opportunity. You're gonna have some nice shopping there. Some good vendors are going to be there, and good speakers are going to be there. And so, we get to experience us being together and making some things happen, right? So by all means,
Mm,
please come
no.
out the 26th, 28th through in December at Baltimore. And check that out at
Mm.
Rhoda Islamic Center of Delaware. I don't know if that's .com. I don't know what that is, right? But
I don't know if
okay.
it's .org
As,
or .com.
well, yeah, I think I was getting put up right now. So um by all means, please check it out. Please check us out and stay. And we're going to keep pushing more information. You see them in my stories. You're seeing in my posts on Instagram and Facebook, right? You'll see that. So by all means, please, 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 please come through. All right. So thanks again, Sheikh, for reminding me of that. And with that, we're gonna
Alhamdulillah,
close out.
alhamdulillah.
And we're gonna see you next week, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.